Where are you from? You know, where are you from? Anyway, as per your question, these are the flags of the two organizations whose meeting we are organizing. This is the flag of FIA, the International
Flag Genesis
governing body, and this particular knot is a knot called a sheep bend, which is the only knot that you can use to tie a big rope to a little rope and have it not slip. So, and it's superior to a square knot for emergency situations.
Flags, life after death.
Yeah. This is the flag of the North American Vexillological Association, which is the North American organization having members from Canada and the United States. The colors are taken from the Canadian flag and the U.S. flag. The V stands for vexillology, and the meeting that we are having has adopted this flag. And this is the flag of Flag Congress San Francisco. That's what we're calling ourselves for working purposes. The V for vexillology is present. We have the flags of the host country, red, white, blue, the colors of the flag of the host country. The colors of the state, gold and blue, are official California colors. The colors of San Francisco are gold and black, and this is the phoenix from the original 1899 San Francisco flag, being reborn. And we combine the colors of the host country, host state, host city with those of Nava, red, white, and blue, and FIA, gold and blue.
It all works.
And if you count the number of feathers on the phoenix, there are 12, and this is the 12th International Congress on Vexillology. That's what we got to put on the flag page that we did.
What?
That's what we got to put on the flag page.
Isn't there 12?
Well, and if you add the flame points,
Flame points, not 12.
there are 11, or no, 9 flame points. 1,
12.
2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 flame points, and the 9 flame points and the 12 feathers add up to 21, and this is the 21st meeting of the North American Vexillological Institute. And that, I'd love to say, was planned, but it's a coincidence.
Oh. Most designs are a coincidence, but they sound good when you
But
describe
Now you need an anthem. No, but 200 years from now it's going to be a plan.
Yeah. Yeah. And the interesting thing is that in contrary to North American tradition, San Francisco's torse, that bit of twisted wreath under the thing, starts with its color, not its metal. And heraldry gold is considered a metal, not a color. And torses always start with a metal, and just sort of well, we're doing it American way. I don't know if that's true.
So where's that going to go on this page?
or 540 letters that I wrote, I have received 53 flags back, and of course that was supplemented by another probably 40 letters to Illinois City, since I hadn't received some of the flags from them.
On a mail campaign, that is a great return.
Yeah, really.
Oh, yeah.
That's a fantastic. You figured 2.5%, 3%.
But right, that's 9%.
Yeah, we got out of
100 brochures. I didn't get one call back.
Oh,
That
really?
was it.
No, but I wrote 40 letters
Gentlemen, I got a
back to
different job.
Illinois City. I wrote 40 letters back to Illinois City saying, I'm really disappointed that, and surprised that I didn't receive your flag already, you know. You still have time to send it in. And I've gotten 2 or 3 back even from that. So I didn't expect more, because I got 2 today, so I would suggest that there'll probably be more in the mail. So it will go over 300, because I'm at 300 right now. Tomorrow we get started to...
Sure, yeah, you can interrupt me.
This for a
Let me see this. No, I want to show everybody. The name tag is the ticket for everything. And I've got a code here that there are 4 colors of dots: blue, orange, red, and yellow. And that will let you into different events. I have coded the calendar here to show what color dot you need to get into what thing. So for example, anybody who's paid for the program gets a blue dot on their name tag, and that gets them into the reception, into the presentations, and any of the General Assembly and business meeting stuff. If you have a red dot, that gets you onto the tours. And if you have a yellow dot, that gets you into the reception if you haven't gotten it already through your program. So when Debbie comes to Treasure Island for the reception, she'll have a yellow dot.
So if you have a yellow dot, you don't have a blue dot.
That's right. Yellow dot is inconsistent with a blue dot. And
We should have made it green, that way yellow without green, you could have the blue.
I just had 4 colors here. It was real tough. Anyway,
And then we got a half moon too. Huh?
yeah.
No, tell them
Orange,
about that.
Wait, you didn't go into the orange.
Orange is for meals. If someone has signed up at Lone Mountain, has got accommodations at Lone Mountain, they get an orange dot, and that gets them the lunches and the breakfasts that we are serving catering at Lone Mountain as opposed to down at the Commons. So we're going to have people to check name tags at every door, and on the names for the signs for entry into the doors for each event, we'll have the color dot that you need. So you say, hey, you need a red dot to get onto this.
No dot, no spot, huh?
Yeah.
No dot, no spot. I like that.
And so then the half moons are
Right,
if
you
they
write it
didn't,
down.
if they
What's
only
wrong?
bought lunches.
What's that?
The half.
The half is if you bought just lunches.
Okay, and so that's inconsistent with the full moon.
That's right. You can't have it.
There's no advantage to cutting your dot in half.
Right.
That's right. You could sort of cut it in half and share it with someone else for lunchtime, and then put it back again for breakfast the next day. Anyway,
Sorry, go ahead.
on the name, well, no, on the name tag, we're going to put the country of origin, or for Americans and Canadians, state of origin, and for
I think that's for
Congress flag.
I want a Congress flag.
For Congress staff members, we'll put the Congress flag on. What's the status on this?
All right, we took all the stats over to him, Xerox, at about 5:01. He let me in, he took the close. But they don't like the Xerox with the sticky stuff late in the day because the machines are hot and it heats up the glue, which oozes out. So he's going to run it in the morning.
Okay.
Hopefully, because Coster wants a couple to put on some press stuff.
Okay. And you're just going to draw them
Uh,
in, paint them yourself?
yeah, and I
There's only 4 of them. How are we going to make 4 or 5?
No. Anybody who's
yeah, volunteers and
Oh, okay.
so there's about
Yeah.
20. The idea is to have it Xeroxed onto sticky stuff back. So 'cause I glued that one, it's a piece of paper. Then we just cut them out, put them down.
Oh, that's for the flag,
Right.
Congress flag.
okay. Thanks.
I have shrimp louis and sirloin steak and roasted red potatoes and vegetable and stuff. And then for dessert, we're gonna get a large sheet cake with our flag put on it. And I think it'd be a great idea if it's sparkly. And then roll it down on this big thing. Yeah, I think everybody's gonna go crazy.
Like baked Alaska.
Sparklers on the cake?
Sparklers on the cake.
Sure.
Great idea, huh?
Sure.
Sure.
turn this place into several exhibits that's world renowned. So until tonight, I didn't know there was any such thing as vexillology. But that's one of the nice things about living in San Francisco. You meet all sorts of wonderful and interesting people. And my friend, attorney Leroy Wilson from White Plains, New York, was just lamenting that he's going to have to get his wife and come back to San Francisco as soon as his life will let him. But we're really fortunate, indeed fortunate to be able to live in such an interesting and splendid area of the world. And we're only delighted that you could come. And whenever I have a problem involving flags, my flag lieutenant, I give them a call, and I used to wonder why they call them flag lieutenants, but now I know. Our problems are immediately solved. But again, I hope you have a wonderful time, and some of you know we're trying to get the USS Missouri into San Francisco Bay. We're encountering a few problems with some of the petty politicians in San Francisco, but I think we're going to prevail. And the San Francisco... Now we're going through what we feel or try to look like without memory a few times, but only hope, because I think that the Missouri would be beneficial, not only symbolically.
In the Pacific from 1813 to the present time. This is the only 3 sea service museum in the country. That's the center section of the museum. Because of the interest in battleships, we have a section down there on the modern battleship from the 1890s to the present. And there's even a little sound system down there. I'll tell you. We get arguments like that all the time. Of course, everybody knows it's the Golden Gate Bridge until they come to our exhibit. Then you can take a look for yourselves and see which one is truly the greatest bridge in the world. We also, in order to have a World's Fair, so we tell the story of the World's Fair. We're going to improve this section considerably. 1939, 1940, a dream of peace in the Pacific. In 1939 and 1940. In the Atlantic. Right? It is to a pilot. Anybody who's a pilot can tell you why. The Pacific was spanned in 19...
One last thing, this building used to be decorated with a collection of state flags, and years ago they removed them, but left fortunately for us, the hardware-graphic poles in place. What we have on these poles is a private collection of Lieutenant Commander Roger Kaye, is here tonight, and he's a naval flag collector. He came forward with this collection, offering it to displayed at flag conference. I thought, what more appropriate place to display a naval flag collection? I think this is one of the...
Here. The smaller flags right behind it actually aren't part of my collection, but the collection wouldn't be complete without it. I borrowed them for the night from the station here, and if they aren't careful, they'll go home with me. I don't know what World War II. The orange flag is a family flag that we found on a merchant ship that we were using to bring side. Some of those are from countries that are out.
That's right.
Countries out of date.
Addresses for this evening. I want to just say one thing. Again, thank you all for coming. Tomorrow morning, we serve breakfast in the University Commons. That's upstairs. You don't have to go down the hill. The breakfast will be up in Lone Mountain Commons. And the opening ceremonies will be outside on the lawn at the semicircular or the L of flagpoles that you saw upon your arrival. So please enjoy breakfast, and then don't go down to the presentation auditorium. Please just come out to the lawn where we tried to catch the buses.
8 o'clock.
Thank you very much. Hear, 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 hear. One thing, please enjoy the displays of peace. Feel free to mingle throughout the museum, but please keep the food and beverages off the carpeted area.
Come on now, you want a natural.
subway.
Ja, welche Stadt? Neubrück? Wo der Bundeskanzler herkommt. Oh ja.
One theater, they were just getting music
Okay. How about the ability to like to see it physically? Here, okay, I'll bring that one. How about the Royal Icelandic State?
Lógicamente su ejemplar lo tengo aquí.
Welcome and good morning.
Morning.
I'm glad you're all here, and welcome to the opening reception of the 12th International Congress on Vexillology. The program begins today, and we can now move forward with all of the presentations. We're going to start this with the hoisting of all the international flags of all the countries participating. I'd like to introduce William Crampton, Secretary General for Congresses of the Fédération Internationale Association of Vexillologiques, and Doreen Braverin, President of North American Vexillological Association, and our host, Whitney Smith of the Flag Research Center.
Gentlemen, I'm addressing you really on behalf of our absent President, Professor Hugh Boudin, who unfortunately cannot be with us for this Congress, and in his place the board has given me the responsibility of taking the chair. My first act as acting President of Congress is to ask Mr. Ferrigan to raise the flag of the Congress and of the Association. Ladies and gentlemen, with the hoist.
Now Australia. Now Germany.
Wait for me.
Keep doing 15.
At the opening ceremony outside, we were very briefly introduced, but let me just repeat that I'm here in place of Professor Boudin, the President.
The members of Nava are to be able to share in this joint Congress. This is something that has been a tradition for a number of years. I know my first meeting that I attended in Nava was in Ottawa, and that too was a joint Congress. This is a little special year. This is a very special year for Nava. At the very first meeting of...
for a number of reasons, the Flag Research Center is one of the official co-hosts of the Congress. And this is the 25th anniversary of the Flag Research Center. The Fédération Internationale des Associations Vexillologiques itself is 20 years old. It was founded in 1967 in Switzerland, and this is our 12th Congress. The first Congress preceded the formation of the Federation. I think we've come a long way, and a mark of that is the number of associations and institutions we have around the world. I'm going to call the list and dates of all our 12 Congresses, and we hope that it outlives us all.
Congress of Vexillology comes shortly after the anniversary of the birth of vexillology some 25 years ago. So I think it is timely that we provide. It is international in its interest, not focused on local issues alone. Work is scholarly rather than anecdotal, objective rather than patriotic. The enterprise is systematic and intensive rather than sporadic and casual. It is done in a cooperative fashion rather than as a series of isolated acts of individuals who neither know nor care about others in the field. It presumes that flags form an independent area of study rather than a subdivision of heraldry. But on the other hand, it recognises that these are close links to other academic disciplines. Social philosophy...
For the Flag Research Center, I thought I'd start by showing you a flag which I had made earlier this year. This is a special celebration flag from Hong Kong used on ships, and this one says along the hoist, 25th anniversary, and down the center says Flag Research Center. And since it's a special kind of flag, I thought it was perhaps appropriate for this occasion. It must be impartial, never beholden to commercial ends, ideology, nationalism, or the interests of specific individuals or governments. It must be international, recognizant of flags as a phenomenon encompassing all eras and areas of human society, and one which cannot be understood through a parochial or xenophobic attitude. It must be permanent with
non-terran humans and those of truly alien life forms. Truly alien life forms would be easy xenovexillology, still having a hard time figuring out what you call the flags of somebody who is human but not of Earth. So let me get on. Okay, man.
Within their history courses, or their social studies courses in the junior school, and if we would provide them with a very simple package, I'm sure that in time the children will add to it, and the teachers will, and the school boards as they see the interest. I used to teach, for example, in Canada, every school child learns about, spends grade 4 learning about Indians. Now why couldn't you have a patch study on Indians?
Whitney Smith, about less than 2 months ago, for the first time, Patty Whitney, through an article that appeared in the Lowell, Massachusetts paper, the Sun of 19...
Tours! Come on, wave to me or something.
Have a vexillological lunch here.
Oh, good. Big V on it.
300.
Display like this, and San Francisco was once called the City of Flags. It's around this significant event. The program today.
It's a pleasure for me to welcome you to San Francisco today on behalf of Mayor Kaye Feinstein, who unfortunately is out of the city today and couldn't speak for herself. I'd like to read you the proclamation she signed of welcome. It goes as follows. Proclamation. Whereas San Francisco is called the City of Flags. Whereas the International Flag Association, the Fédération Internationale Vexillologiques, and the North American Vexillological Association have chosen San Francisco for their joint congress, which will be held this August, when flag experts from around the world meet in our city. And whereas many San Francisco institutions, including the City Fair and the International Exposition, the National Maritime Museum, San Francisco Public Library, the Presidio of San Francisco will participate in the 1987 Flag Congress by arranging flag-related exhibitions and activities, and whereas the city salutes those involved in the Flag Congress, now therefore be it resolved that I, Dan Feinstein, Mayor of the City and County of San Francisco, do hereby proudly proclaim August 10th to 16th, 1987, as City of Flags Week in San Francisco, and do commend its support and celebration to all the citizens. And this is signed by Mayor Feinstein. On her behalf, I say welcome. Thank you very much for coming to San Francisco. I'd like also to say,
Here to share with us some of the history of that symbol is San Francisco's historian and city archivist Gladys Hansen.
Back, all right. In one of her movies, she said, "Oh my goodness," and that's the way I feel looking at all these flags. Of course, I am, and that bird. A lot of people say it's a dead bird, but it's not, because this bird keeps burned down 6 times. Those were pretty good fires. We were a lot smaller city.
This all started about 5 years ago. I had started a collection of flags merely because I made a flagpole. If you make a flagpole, you got to have something to put on it. So I went to the nearest Army Navy surplus store. I bought one of my favorite flags, a flag for the letter W, which is called whiskey. And I taped it to the pole because I didn't have the line to draw it up and down. It stayed on the pole for a couple or 3 months, and all that was left was the heading. So I went back to get another, and I said, you know, this is really crazy to get one. Why don't I get several? Then I can change them every day, more color, and they'll last longer. So after that, everything's kind of gone downhill. And as you can see, there's a pocket, and it's verified. The staff art is a fantastic collection. A lot of my own sewing has gone into these flags. As you see, sometimes when I send you a full-size flag, I'll always get a picture of it, and it's not too intricate that even I myself can sew and make a full-size flag.
It's nice to join the left.
Yeah, I know.
Because we
only have center, so that's nice to know. See, and we can learn new things. This building, just to give you some basic facts, let's walk over here. There's a little bronze plaque on this wall, which includes City Hall and part of the library. So I'll try to time it so that we get everything in, and it's about well, almost 2 hours. We're going to eat.
is Martin Francis's display, right?
Right. It's not good. He has little jelly beans on it. There's droopers.
Okay.
Wealthy San Francisco pioneer came here in the gold rush days, died in 1877, but was
There's a guy named Max Lucier who did a color study, which is an interesting thing. Opposite of active red is the color green, which means peace or pacifism. We find that the color green shows up in national flags of countries that were formerly oppressed by countries that have red in their flags. I don't know if there's any conclusions you can draw from that, but I'll just leave that where it is. In 1981, and what was pointed out is that perhaps if it were a historical accident that Ghana just chose these colors. Actually, they came from Ethiopia. Ethiopia was the first and had independence all along in Africa. Ghana took those colors and applied to their flag.
And in the last 30 years, green became popular just because red and blue had taken all the simple designs. In other words, had you compared flags where if you substituted red or blue for the green, you could produce some other country's flag, as opposed to those whose designs are unique or different from previously existing.
Well, that may be true, but what we're...
I originally took photographs of each individual. It came about 100 photographs. But I actually had to take 130 pictures because the whole film didn't turn out. Had to redo it. And Klaus Silksman, Whitney Smith, and Klaus's wife. Unfortunately, I don't know or recognise the rest of the participants. Some of you may. In Washington, D.C., which is the 9th Congress in Ottawa, Canada, in 85, in Madrid. And of course, today's Congress flag, the 12th Congress.
Well, on behalf of the board, I'm putting this proposal to you. And you're now at liberty to discuss this proposal. Question. The unanimity rule was carefully thought through by, I think this was back to our origins, and parliamentary procedure.
Fair enough.
Flags are on the wall, drying off from the rain last night.
Used 1:1:1 for its stripes. With the exception of the two designs on the first screen that were inspired by fellow Portuguese-speaking African states, all but one of the designs submitted for consideration utilized either diagonals or triangles. Even though the movement's flag contained a triangle, no source for diagonals can be found. The characteristics selected to uniquely identify Sao Tome and Principe predominantly used angles, and proportionally far beyond their use in Africa, Portugal, or even the world. The unusually high rejection of designs similar to the other African states of Portuguese heritage is further circumstantial evidence that Sao Tome desired to be unique, not just one of the crowd, from the British West Indies. In the last 25 years, British colonialism has virtually disappeared from the Caribbean. During the past quarter of the century, the English-speaking states of the region were colonies, members of a federation, associated states, and lastly, independent nations. These many changes though a last-minute alteration to avoid confusion with the Tanganyika flag, and Trinidad's diagonally striped banner were unique and highly visible amongst the flags of older nations. Barbados and Guyana were the next to attain independence in 1966. Barbados adopted a traditional flag of 3 vertical stripes, although one of the Smith chose its striking golden arrowhead flag, which is composed of overlapping triangles. Although Whitney Smith's original design had a green hoist triangle and red fly, this is the final one that was chosen by Guyana. Okay, the following year...
Projects created among the Sami have still not subsided. It has done much to alarm and alert those who want to preserve Sami culture throughout the Sami region, and 74 designs for the Sami flag was submitted to the Nordic Conference. The present flag, designed by Astrid Bahr of Skibotn, Norway, was unanimously accepted. The size of the rectangular flag is specified as 150 centimeters to 202 centimeters. The Nordic Sami Conference has hitherto not been able to agree upon a Sapmi national day. Suggested have been the anniversary of the famous Cartagena revolt of 1852, which was connected.
The South Pacific, consisting of the Tongatapu, Ha'apai, and Babaru groups, are known as the Friendly Islands since Captain Cook's visit in 1777. He didn't know, however, Captain Cook, that at the time of his visit, the chiefs had planned to assassinate him and his crew, but couldn't agree on the timing. The is an erudite man of the world with university degrees in arts and law, and yet deeply rooted in Tongan culture. Under his rule, Tonga again achieved full independence in 1970 as an equal partner in the Commonwealth of Nations. Now, the history of the advised King George II to have a flag made for himself, hoisted, and then the warships of the powers would salute it. The advice was taken, and the first this design essentially corresponded to the national flag, finally adopted in 1866, namely red in a white upper canton, a green fine cross coup. What is known is that this royal standard, I think I have to cut short here. Huh? How much? 10? The royal arms were designed by Prince William Gattoni in Good Pulmon.
In Catalonia, due to the nature of the topic and the native language of the presenter and the topic that she decided to speak on today. So without further ado, if there's any questions with translation, please seek out after the talk. So without further ado, please welcome Ana Maria Alan Piattar.
Del número 2006, del 11 al 17 de març de 1976, ens mostra uns quants d'ells. En aquell moment tots són encara l'equip del treball d'Espanya. El 3 desconeixem què vol representar. En la línia de culturització política del poble català, el dominical El Diario de Barcelona, el 9 d'octubre de 1977, publica en portada els símbols dels 5 partits més votats a Catalunya a les eleccions generals del 15 de juny de 1977. Darwin, Bretanya, Occitània i el Friuli. No ho ha estat quan diu a l'article 3: la bandera oficial de la...
I have distributed illustrations to help you make whatever notes you may wish to, or simply a modernization of a trend and a very rich symbolic treasury that the Indians have. It's just a continuation or a new use of that. As you or vexillological devices were probably in existence, or some form of a symbol carried, as you see here, on the prow of a boat. These are from rock paintings found all across North America, and you see this, some person has called this a medicine flag on two Europeans, and quite early some Indian, had recorded in this pictograph the
Go ahead. We have to salute the end.
Biov 12, Nava 21.
We might.
I'll go get my lunch.
As you can see, the wooden area that I'm standing on is just wood. You lift it up and you have a full
the cargo hold below this entire area. We can, on this ship, take 10,000 tons of cargo. And so this is one of 5 holds in which we would carry the cargo. We're operating tonight at about 6 o'clock. We're going to light off the engine, and we will steam the engine all weekend long. And it's an old 3-cylinder expansion engine. If you ever get a chance to come down and see us on one of our operating weekends, because we're very proud of the fact that this is an operating vessel. We get her underway each year for what we call the Seamen's Memorial Cruise. And this
these may not be known to you, but I can just pass through this hall and not know anything about them. I'll give you a little bit of background. We had the one you can see right above the White Star. As we know, in the Commonwealth, the tradition is that the merchant fleet has a distinct flag from the New Zealand red sign. It's used at sea by the ship's same national flag except for the background color. The same kind of flag was used by Pakistan when
John Lyman was the second president of Nava, the Nava president's flag.
There's 2 American flags on display here. This is the flag of The Glory of the Seas, which John Lyman wrote about in one of his articles.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I find it hard to believe that they're both gone, and I would love. Well, it's all right here. Would you
I couldn't even spell it, probably.
The principal librarian was going to say no. The librarian was there. And so, you really got all these flags in here. Over in the back. Attention! Ralph, everyone, if you could just gather around. Welcome to the Presidio Army Museum. This is one of the, in my opinion, one of the finest Army museums in the country. It's housed in what was formerly the Presidio Hospital, scattered fire, which followed the earthquake in 1906. A replica of that flag, nephew of Mary Todd, later Mary Todd Lincoln.
All native sons of the Golden West. Our organization has been in existence since 1875, and I'm sure you're well aware of the number of flags that flown on the California in its history, and this one being very important, June 14, 1846, and having lost the original and then Scott Bonfiglio was really behind.
Two members
money together to have it properly restored and presented. But this is the model 1862. Beg your pardon? Well, we have textile tape off. They're loosening the mucilage on the tape, and the acidity would have to be dealt with. And we all know the problem with old leaded silks and how they break up. Muslin using silk thread in the past, but of course we have the 9th Regiment of Infantry's colors, and we believe this one is probably the model 1885, approximately. There was, of course, the hand-painted variations that existed far previous, this going back to the time of the Civil War before. But
Hi.
Canada. It's a pretty old flag, isn't it? I wonder if it's treated so old. Could it be worse than that? Doesn't look like it.
Up until this morning, I was told this was made back in Rio. So we enrolled it. We didn't really know for
a day. Cousin there. Then I moved to California.
I don't end up full of stuff.
this unit was around the volumes on World War II. Not the variety of the quartermaster talks about.
The basic theme of the talk is to demonstrate that the idea of creating flags is not a modern concept, but rather can be seen actually from medieval times.
La realidad, y este documento es el que se va a comentar en esta comunicación.
A document has been found that prove that since medieval times the idea of creating new flags existed already, and the talk she's going to elaborate how this came about.
El documento en concreto, un territorio español, un señorío.
De Bossellell es veurien que passats per Aitals. Dada en València, sots nostre segell secret, a 20 dies de juny de l'any 1371, Rex Petrus. La forma del senyal, és segell, que Molina deu fer.
National flag usage in the United States in the late 1960s. Although he did not propose a new system of analysis, Firth called for vexillological scholarship into the type of action which he described as, quote, an inversion of the sacred, using the symbol in a ritual manner, but in a contrary sense to normal usage, and attaching antithetical values to the referent in a positive, moral way. I wish to suggest that the concept of hegemony
Tell her how good I feel. Cut your flag, gal won't get you into heaven anymore. They're already overcrowded from your dirty little war. Now Jesus don't mind killing, no matter what the reason's for. And your flag, gal won't get you into heaven anymore.
given the pleasure of serving Nava as the corresponding secretary for this 1986 to 1987 administration. My first task accomplished was ordering new stationery for our organization, and in doing so, I changed the letterhead, list of officers, etc., by downsizing the same and placing it on the far left margin, thus allowing more available. The membership cards to members, and especially to new members, be once again handled by the corresponding secretary as per our bylaws, rather than the treasurer. Granted, if the treasurer
rise to it, because the increase in membership would pay for it.
The work of the secretary would be actually handled. That would mean
Why?
Where the flag is here, you know, it's been a while to sell flags. This is now a home movie when I did that. Now, there's a lady that's floating around before comes in and teaches things in churches, and they put evangelists
Tell me your specialty.
Military flags, all countries, particularly regimental. Just love them. Can't get enough of them. It's my passion.
Thank you.
I'm taking this back to San Diego with me.
Great.
America's Cup. That flag counts at all? Yes, I know.
You should film my. It's the Americas, North America.
How's business?
People that don't pay. No, I serve mine.
Show us your goods. What have you got to sell?
Well, listen, I have a wide selection of flag books here from some of the most famous authors in the flag business. We have Whitney Smith, the world-renowned vexillologist expert. We have a book in Spanish here, Banderas de España, pardon my Spanish. We have How to Read a Coat of Arms. This will teach you how to read a coat of arms. We have flag posters from all over the world. Ooh, that looks nice. Norwegian coast flag, great. We have another flag by Whitney Smith, one of my personal heroes. We have a flag poster of all the states of the United States, designed for a man for his children, by a man for his children, and many other things. So have fun at the flag conference.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Portrait of the artist. Happy Flag Congress.
What am I up to? Pig heaven. Basically, this is the Federation flag from the movie Star Trek. It's a stylized United Nations flag, which is what their flag was based off of, the TV series.
Are you selling that one?
Yes, yes, it is.
And that one?
It would be easy in many cases to state when a flag's life began, although not always. Sometimes the date of its official adoption by law or decree tells only part of the story, simple lengths of time, and did not materialize until much later when they were actually displayed in public. Still, the origins of a flag can sooner or later be brought to light by diligent research. But the task gets really tough when we try to tell when and where the flag's life ends. When does a flag die? I bought this thing in a decal shop near the main railway station in Bonn, Germany. And that's such a positive thing.
Ruling Lesotho National Party, headed by the then Prime Minister, Chief Leopold Jonathan. Over the next 20 years, the government of Lesotho, in common with the governments of many third world states, moved increasingly towards the political left. You are aware the national flag of a country is subject to modification or to complete change at the hands of the people as their definition of national identity or goals alters. The design of the stars and stripes, for example, has altered with the addition to the Union of New States. Similarly, elephants in the full baggage train being one of the remarkable feats of military history, one realizes that the elephant's head is indeed an appropriate emblem for a military flag. A growing the Army Intelligence Corps and the Ordnance Services Corps. The new flag of the Ordnance Services School also contains the 4 colours.
Yes, that's right. This is the visual part. Having said these few remarks, I think we'll just get on with a few slides and I'll comment on them as I go. And that's perhaps the best way to do it. Focus well enough. Well, the earliest extant examples in the 1200s, and it's simply a symbolic representation, of course, of Edinburgh Castle. It's black and a white background. The red flags and windows and court are specified in the blazon of the coat of arms. Over Edinburgh municipal buildings of city townhouses, we call it here. So I'm not sure if this focus is working all right. It doesn't make any difference. Supported by what's described as a maid richly attired and a hind. And the shield round about our towns in the vicinity of Edinburgh, top left is the east coast of Edinburgh. The bottom centre is the town of an old line that goes, this is a tree that never grew, the bird that never flew, symbolic fashion, supported with 2 salmon. The mumbling song. That's one of the old seals, that's a 17th century seal, as you see it, in a more symbolic form there, the tree with a branch. See how it developed. That's after the city of Dundee. I don't know the origin of the woodland. It's originally well, the font of lilies is the symbol of different marriages. The parish of the DA.
Of this place. Mr. Michael Moore, Deputy Minister in the department, who also has a keen interest in heraldry, suggested a display of civic flags. One of the most important points behind the exhibition was that the flags would outlast the life of Expo 86 and onto Yellowknife. The designs themselves come from civic pins, suggestions by members of the local council, competitions, and village seals and letterheads, such as the case of Clyburn. Modified by removing the coats of arms from a green field and placing it on a central white vertical stripe flanked by 2 green bars. So they actually modified. I also want to apologize, except to a much greater degree, as a New Englander. It's like the first days of March or April when you hit the 70-degree weather, and you're turning your clocks back ahead so that you get the extra hour of time. You can't imagine what it must feel like to have light after 24 hours of darkness, months of it. Symbols of the southern sun. I might add here. Here's the here's the southern sun. A midnight sun, excuse me, and the blue there, although it's blue, is indicative of the midnight sun according to the town clerk of Inuvik. And I'll explain more about that later. Okay, what's the other one? Okay. Arms on the right of Utsjoki, which shows the northern lights. That's from Finland. Godhavn is from is a Danish name of a town in Greenland. You can see the northern lights of the jagged edges.
Where are these from, Jim?
My collection.
And what countries?
This is Kuwaiti variants. These are Qatari variants. I don't know. I just got fascinated by it one day.
In fact, they're not quite sure what maroon is.
Pretty well all over that, Bishop. Can somebody take a photo with my camera as well?
Okay.
Sure. Next International Congress of Vexillology going to be?
Melbourne, Australia. Excuse me, is that strong enough there?
International Congress of Vexillology.
Melbourne.
Please describe your flag to us.
Red kangaroo on a United Nations field, symbolising international cooperation. Red kangaroo, red kangaroo. The cross and the 3 vertical stripes of 13 Roman numerals. The gold colour of the 3 vertical stripes is to highlight the letter M for Melbourne. And the X has the stylised person, which symbolises Congresses are of people. And the diagonal line coming down from the red kangaroo is like the staff of the flag, holding the banners. The white streamer emphasises that it's about flags.
You're going to have to explain the kangaroo to me. Where's a kangaroo?
Why can't you see it, Ted? You surprised me. I'm not it's a kangaroo. It's actually
Okay, where's the head?
That's the head.
Where's the feet?
Tail.
And the tail?
Tail is there.
I'll have to take your word for it.
And that's the M for Melbourne.
I got that.
There's actually supposed to be another stylised kangaroo here, which is even more difficult to see.
That white is a stylized kangaroo. The blue is a stylized kangaroo.
And then that's another tail.
You put a lot of work into this. Congratulations.
And the flowing waves are symbolising the streams, flags.
Thank you.
You've got the lot. It was designed by Anthony Burton.
It may be that in many cases people design flags with the intent that they last a millennium. In fact, there are a great many flags that are designed for specific occasions, both official and unofficial, that are meant to last 5 years or 1 year or whatever else, or into a couple of years as flags of occasion. Bicentennial. There are tremendous numbers, celebrations for Victoria's Jubilee, whatever.
12th Congress flag.
12th Congress flag. Now there's a 3-day flag.
Careful.
And so that
I sometimes wonder about where does this emotion come in, because obviously they wanted to have a pretty chart and there's lots of colors on it. But there really wasn't, and I think this is pointed out by James when he phoned the most official person in the town. They didn't know how that particular symbol got on there. Because the Canadian flag was formed, it was the biggest debate in Canadian history. And they wrangled for years over that flag. To me, what we have, one you want, but that's what you're saying. But that's not the point. The point is that
what you're saying flags should involve the emotion of those whom they represent and so forth. But my feeling is that we as social scientists have to say that flag exists and is used, or it doesn't exist and isn't used, whatever the situation is. And we may like, just as we like well-designed flags, but that's really flag design, vexillography. That's not vexillology, flag study. As flag study, we note with interest that these flags were created for a specific occasion by the central government through the agency of the silk screen and were manufactured by you, and then the people in the towns learned that they had a flag and they didn't know they had it. Maybe they'll use it, maybe they won't. But we shouldn't make value judgments on whether that's a, quote, real flag or not. We should simply note the conditions and let things fall where they may.
that's true, but I think Ray
And just note that, I think that's an important part of study, because it used to be that flags were always created because the polis cared and the polis came forward, and now it's being handed down by some, I don't know, McDonald's or something is coming around giving them to you. Then perhaps that's something that vexillologists should also consider themselves with.
On this. You're not going to stay here tonight.
Melda, you know, that, no.
What, the chocolate?
Yes.
People who run this organization.
Have you ever heard of
Say cheese.
Au grand ciel.
Say fromage.
Whether or not you get a bingo out of it, and what kind of combinations. Because I've been playing.
Yes, and in business, both the business meeting, except for about Sri Lanka visitors. We didn't forget that.
Yeah, what time do I have everybody back here? All the cops. What's your cup?
An accounting too, I need an accounting.
Good.
Long answer.
The field on which the cross was displayed did not, and the shade of blue similar to Savoy blue. Even after the end of the monarchy in 1946, this color was retained, and it continues to have extensive symbolic use in Italy. Here you see the Savoy knot as it was originally used, and I will tell you a little bit more about that later. This is an Italian tank commander wearing a blue sash in the Republican period. This is an Italian officer wearing the same blue sash that is worn for special occasions. The decorations of the highest, the ribbons of the highest rewards for valor are invariably blue, and you can see one there. The jerseys of Italian national soccer teams and all the uniforms of Italian Olympic teams are blue. And little schoolboys and schoolgirls wear blue ribbons as part of their uniform. And then you backtrack. Named Order of the Annunciation in 1518. The figure of 8 knots, which were described as l'axe d'amour in the contemporary document, represented the bond between the knights. Blue was
Individual advertising is very expensive, and being a
small as we are in incorporating the larger manufacturers, because they'll benefit too. It's hard being an international organization, but there could be a group established to maybe put some sort of advertising firm or hiring them to do a local or a national or international generic promotion.
All members now. Combine them all, not what one or the other now. To divide this group up, to do some regional contacts. I assume some of us are going to have some, like I've contacted a flag company in St. Louis, Chicago, manufacturers, because we've kind of got to, we're almost going to have to pick out small chunks to get organized type of an idea. Is that agreement with everybody? Pick a few of us to contact other people, see if we've got enough interested people, or how do we want to approach it?
There's got to be a structure to it, and ask the people who are not here who want to be involved. There's going to have to be someone in charge, and then from there you can have your different regions. And I know it's hard for us all to get together, being small manufacturers.
Other people.
Yeah.
Maybe do we want to list some of the goals that we've discussed that we think are a priority? In other words, show them what we talked about. What we think is the purpose.
The society was created in 1691 under the name of Abbaye de l'Arc. The word abbaye comes from the Middle Ages, when festivals of the society is the abbot. The archives of the Abbaye de l'Arc mention from time to time flags taken to escort the king. That is to say, the lucky archer who got the best center shot. We have in the center the coat of arms of Lausanne, and on the other side some archery symbol. Oh, there's a mix-up. Doesn't matter. We do not know if the ladies embroidered the flag by themselves, but in any case, the present was received with a certain pleasure, and except by some heraldists who were pretending the coat of arms of Lausanne is not divided half and half. Party profess silver and gold, but gold with a silver chief. Or of the time of Frederick the Great in Prussia. And there were too many colors. In order to reduce, it was not satisfactory. So that we decided to come back to the flame, and one of us suggested something asymmetrical. It was looking like a ball gown as in a fashion show. On one side, it is possible to write something. But with letters, we were obliged to put two bands of canvas on each side of the flag, which made the silk too heavy. Then cross throughout. We had already studied this with Mr. Müllimann in Turin 16 years ago. But not without a last discussion about the little archer. If placed as is on the seal, it would...
Good afternoon. In 1984-85, I had an opportunity to do several things in New Guinea besides being a World Health Organization consultant to the Ministry of Health of Papua New Guinea. First of all, I toured most of the areas in all of the provinces and had to contact government officials and also tribal elders and so on. photographed what in Pisin is called the mark belong place, the place symbol. In contradistinction to mark belong country, national symbol. Such signs are designated as so-called Sing Sing banners in the museums and have various.
Nous avons, conformément au firman impérial du 24 juin 1834, le sultan Mahmoud II avait octroyé au bateau de commerce valaque un pavillon dont la flamme était jaune, offrant quartier rouge, chargé de 3 étoiles blanches, posées 2 et 1. Logique de l'époque, allemand, anglais, hollandais, français et autres, la présence d'autres insignes vexillaires attribués à la marine de commerce des 2 principautés précitées. Aux bicolores horizontaux, présumés être des pavillons d'État, à la flamme rouge et bleue pour la Moldavie, et jaune et bleu, attends, vous pouvez changer, jaune et bleu pour la Valachie, vous pouvez changer. Bon, voilà. Ce n'est pas noir, la photo n'est pas très bonne. Pour ensuite, il y avait exactement le bleu en haut et
one time or another in the creation of the state of Texas from the desolate territory it once was. Also known as the flag of the Republican Army of the North. In 1812, under the leadership of a former U.S. Army Lieutenant, Augustus W. McGee, aided by a Colonel Bernardo Gutierrez, the Spanish were routed first from Nacogdoches and then at San Antonio. The Republic Long's flag. Rebellion flag of 1826. Under the grant land given to him by the Mexican government, a wealthy Mississippian by the name of Hayden Edwards with 800 families trekked out to the new lands in eastern Texas.
This thing really works.
Much better than some of the ones that I have noticed over the years. Each year, I think we improved. And we had Ralph Bartlett, Fred Brownell, Dan Durbin II, William Crampton, James Croft, Alessandra Ferraro, Jim Ferrigan, Anna Maria Gallant-Fla, Scott Gunter, Kevin Harrington, Don Healy, Louise Gillette, Wolfgang Zilek, Mark Liss, Norman Logan, Martin O'Malley, David Pawson, Arnold Rabel, Casimir Duran, Maria Jose Sastra, E. Arabelle, and Whitney Smith. Those are people who put on the award. And before I do so, I would make this announcement. I would like to ask George Cahill to stand up as the member from the National Flag Foundation who presents this award. George?
I didn't win the award. I'm waiting with bated breath for your girl to hear who it is.
Well, I just want you to stand up because I think it's your foundation that puts in $100 in and $100 out, right?
You have that privilege, but I'm so anxious.
Arnold Rabel.
Very much, my wife, and well, this is something we remember. And we'll surely remember this whole complex. It was so nice to hold weapons again and make new ones. And so we'll have a lot to take back. Apart from
who was our past president. And since her field of expertise is textiles, I kept thinking cloth, 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 and of course, running around to flags. And so, I'd like to direct your attention to the Nava officers' flags, which are listed over here. The first one is the President's flag, which bears a Cheyenne symbol, the Morning Star. The next one is the Vice President's flag, which bears a Mongolian symbol, flame symbol of rebirth. The middle one is the Corresponding Secretary, which is the Ashanti symbol of welcome. The fourth one is an Arab hymn box, symbolic of the role of the Recording Secretary. And the last one is a phoenix, which in Thailand is a symbol of tax collection. Back with a recent change made, there was an executive board decision that there should be flags created for past Nava officers. And by unanimous vote, it was decided that the past officers would receive flags with the field reversed. And we would now like to present the first one of these ever presented to the woman who was the first to the first woman president of Nava, Grace Cooper.
Great. Oh,
We would really, really like to thank you for the years and many years you have devoted and done such an excellent job on looking after Nava in this presentation. Perhaps you'd like to show it.
What a wonderful surprise.
Hey, great.
In San Francisco this past year, we've had two major celebrations, both honoring two great bridges. And for the 50th anniversary for both bridges, we decided to give two awards. To Scott Gunter and Dave Pawson, for the most riveting award, we give a Golden Gate Bridge rivet as our special prize for the most riveting speeches. This is a great story. My father worked 25 years in Golden Gate Bridge. And when they handed over the rivets.
First, how to get you out of here. If you're going to San Francisco Airport, there's one of these little yellow tickets in your kit that'll get you $1 off on, who is it? Good Neighbors Airport Shuttle. You call them up and it acts like a shared taxi. It costs you about $7 to get to the airport. If you don't have one of these, see me, I'll give you one. The roster will be available after the dinner out at the registration table. Come by and get one there in front of the flags. There's one for everybody who's a program registrant, so you're prescribed.
One more time. They've been getting better and better every 2 years.
That's a take. Good.
That's a take. All right. This is certainly one which I've enjoyed. But when we knew in Madrid that the next Congress was to be in San Francisco, some of us Europeans over there, many miles away from here, had a sinking feeling in our hearts. My God, San Francisco, that's really the other side of the world. Well, of course, it is the other side of the world from our point of view. And we had a psychological barrier as well as a financial one to overcome. But I like to think that some of us were heroes enough to be able to do that. That they responded in every possible positive way to the few inept suggestions that I've had to make, which might have had some effect on perhaps making the Congress slightly better than it would otherwise have been. But, because the more work which is done locally, of course, the less I have to do, and that's the way I like it. And it's all worked out very well, really. I've Australian Flag Society to hold the next Congress in Melbourne in September, 2 years hence. And I do hope to see you all there then. And in order to...
First of all, congratulate the organisers of this Congress. Very interesting. Can't hear me. Probably because I'm more nervous than I am speaking. I've enjoyed the Congress very much, and I know that my other Australian colleagues have. And
all right.
trainings.
Here is that having seen the flag of the next Congress, we hand over to the organisers of that Congress the holy symbols of the International Federation of Vexillological Associations, which consist of the flag and the gavelle. This gavelle was first used at the first International Congress of Vexillology at Heidelberg in 1965. Every Congress that there has ever been, including the Congress of San Francisco of 1987. In 2 years' time, it will bear very proudly the words Melbourne, 1989.
We went to Tiburon at 10 o'clock that night, and with Joe at the wheel and Nico and I leaning out the window, all of these flags actually flew over the Golden Gate Bridge on its 50th anniversary. You have souvenirs from the bridge.
We met on this continent. We enjoy your lectures. We learn a lot from you, and we really appreciate the opportunity of meeting with you. I would like you to meet the new officers of Nava at this point. My Vice President, Mr. Jim Ferrigan. I always get that backward. It is Rich Kenny, not Kenny. He knew, though. He stood up. I would say, if you have not met this gentleman before, he is the gentleman responsible for the display of city flags in the City Hall. So, corresponding secretary, Mr. Don Healy. My treasurer, whose last name I never pronounced correctly, so I'm just going to call him Gus. The executive board that you people from Nava have given me. We will give you the best year that we possibly can.
Earthquake first, then fire. Gladys Hanson. Gladys?
To know that the largest American flag ever made of balloons was exhibited in the San Francisco City Hall last year during a reception for the U.S. Navy. And one of the largest flags in San Francisco flies from the giant mast atop the Mark Hopkins Hotel. That flagpole was put into place a few years back with a helicopter. We also have, of course, the display of historic American flags in the Civic Center across from the public library. That's where I work. The largest disaster, the 1906 earthquake and fire, is also told by flags. Reporter Fred Hewitt, but just a few feet from where my office is now in the public library, as the earthquake started, he said, "I was within a stone's throw of the City Hall when the hand of an avenging God fell upon San Francisco. The ground rose and fell like an ocean at ebb tide. Then came the crash. Tons upon tons upon tons of that mighty pile slid away from the steel framework. The street heaved in frightful fashion. The earth rocked, and then came the blow that wrecked San Francisco. Were built to replace those destroyed by the earthquake and fire. Flags were hoisted during the topping out ceremonies. People actually cheered when a new flag was flown above a newly completed building." Because it flew over the City Hall that very morning, and when people looked up, look what happened That's a believe it or not story.
And that flag is used widely by San Francisco's lesbian and gay community. And that flag is on its way to becoming one of the newest international flags used by a movement. And we here in San Francisco are privileged to have witnessed the evolution of this flag. And I have known several of the principles involved in its creation, its evolution, and some of the decisions that were made by the various organizations that have used it. So I thought, in a sort of a really quick and informal way, I'd share with you. Hold them up. Yeah. The evolution of the rainbow flag in San Francisco. Since the most outspoken communities within San Francisco is the lesbian and gay community. But before I begin the talk, I just want to say something about a promise I made in Trenton. I said I would not speak after the dinner because this is the third time I got put on the hook for making a talk. And hopefully this will be the last time. I Speak Out for Justice had a meeting. An activist within that community, one Artie Bresson, suggested at the organizing meeting that a symbol that could be used much like the Olympic rings consistently from parade to parade be adopted. His suggestion was taken to heart by a local artist named Gilbert Baker. Gilbert Baker suggested a symbol, the rainbow, which we're going to review. And when I interviewed Gilbert for this talk, he told me that he'd been inspired by the hippie movement. And some of the flags, I just snagged two for this, were some of the things that were flown in demonstrations on various college campuses in, thank you Martin, were things like this. The flag of the race, a stripe representing each color of mankind's skin. Here, we won't know, but these are at least two that I can document that were flown during the summer alone. Another one is on display down in the display area in Mr. Phil Allen's exhibit, Don't Give Up the Hip. Right here, Mr. Baker had included a star, another 51st star, which was for the state of being. Rainbow Girls flag used by the Masons. We took some of them to the store on Polk Street sometime in the spring of 1979, and they started to sell like hotcakes. And this is the one that's used by that Masonic organization. You'll notice that this one has 7 stripes, not the 8 that were used in the 78 parade. When Gilbert came to us, they were splitting into 2 groups. One was called the Leathers, the other was called the Lavenders. The founder, or one of the charter members, Glenn McElhaney, decided that she wanted to have a different flag than the organizing or the rival group, and so this flag was created, adding a pink triangle, a symbol of lesbian gay pride, to the hoist of the flag. Her suggestion, as used here in San Francisco. Okay, the rainbow flag.
On outside, when we raise the flag and declare the Congress open, I now solemnly declare this Congress closed.
Go ahead. Get it done.
Well, it must have been down at Union Square, somewhere around there. We've got a to there. Yeah, by bus.
How many seconds left?
Secretaries General, how did the Congress go?
Whitney, what do you think? I think they did a splendid job of organizing. There were some minor glitches, as there always are, but we had a lot of people, good presentations. Everybody had a good time. I'm very happy with it.
Well, of course, looking at it from the point of view of a European, part of the excitement is travelling to such an exotic place as San Francisco. When you look around you here, you've got this great scene which we could never reproduce in Europe. And speaking personally, I've found it a very great adventure to come here, apart from any of the pleasure involved in the Congress. Wouldn't you say? Of course, you're more used to this sort of thing.
Well, that's true. There's a big difference. In some sense, we of the East Coast are as far from San Francisco as we are from London, but at least we're halfway between. One of the things here, and I think Jim made a point of this, was that you had here all of these flags, probably close to 1,000. And a lot of them were ones that we've seen in books, but how many have we seen in the flesh, as it were?
Well, certainly. This Congress has displayed more actual real flags than any Congress I've ever been to before. And I've really been very impressed with the huge wealth of flags. I think that Jim Ferrigan has had a lot to do with that. And Paramount and the flag shop. And it's all really added to the excitement. Because as flag experts, we really want to see the real thing. We don't just want to see the picture in the book, we want to see the cloth. Where's the cloth? Well, that's whenever I give a presentation, my first presentation I ever gave about the actual flags is, as I told Whitney, I gave one of my first presentations. I got all these slides together and did this big thing on flags used by totalitarian nations, whether it was left or right. And it was a project in college on the use of, it eventually branched out into all insignia, but I was comparing Soviet and Nazi use of large flags and paintings to spur people on. And I tried to do a slide thing, and the slides got all whacked out, and I said, never again. I'll never give another slide presentation. From now on, I actually either hold it up or get a reproduction of it. And that's why we want to reproduce this and just have as many flags as possible so we can have the real thing instead of the...
Well, one of the other exciting things I found was during the seminars, we've always had things where people sit around talking about flags, but here, even though we may have wandered from the topic, the level at which we were dealing, we had some actual academic types, which were very gratifying, and yet manufacturers, hobbyists, and so forth, the terminology, and it occurred to me, when we started, everybody was grassroots. You came in and you said, you know this, you were taking notes and so forth. What was happening here was, we didn't do quite so much of that, although I'm sure there was some, but people coming in, the grassroots were immediately, because but we're still welcoming them. Right. So they're not feeling that we're somehow an elite and they're down here somewhere, and yet they can get in at a very high level because we've been doing it so long.
Yes, I'm very pleased with the way in which we had the seminars at this Congress, and it's clearly something which has come to stay. We're going to have to do it in the future, and already emerging from this was the need for a seminar on flag design, for example, which we didn't actually fit in this time, but perhaps another time.
Exactly. I thought that having the jurying of the flag design contest there put that idea in everyone's head. That how we can help guide people, or at least give them the benefit of experience.
One of the things that came out of it, we don't know yet what's going to happen, but in the past we've had people from all areas, but the commercial section now is at a meeting of its own and is talking about forming, whether it's a section or a separate organization. We may actually, and I think it's a sign of maturity, although it's going to present problems, we may find a parting of the way. It may be that the manufacturers will go off, or maybe that they'll be separate but equal, and maybe some of the other areas such as flag design or flag hobbyists versus flag scholars.
Well, maybe that's one of the things that this task force on membership that Woody's thinking about can address. Maybe we'll have different levels of interest, although the interest is common. A flag, typically, the why varies from individual to individual. For some, it's purely commercial. For others, it's the history rather than the actual flag. For others, it's North American city flags, etc.
Vexillology is growing up, and that in earlier congresses we were just getting to know each other, and now we're really getting to grips with the subject, and I think that we have made quite a few significant strides at this congress.
When I agreed with Whitney 2 years ago to host this, I told him that I think I have a good crew and good organization, and our goal was to have the best and biggest one ever, and I hope we
sure came through.
All right, thank you, Whitney.
Great.
Thank you.
See you in Melbourne.
Hopefully,
Okay.
see you in Melbourne.
Yeah, see you in Melbourne.
I'm getting a tape from the local, any media stuff that was, and we'll tack it on the end of this.
Good.